Hey there, it's Layla, and I recently put up a video about the top 5 things that I see in sessions. The second one is something I'm calling relational drift, that kind of never really landing or grounding. And I see it a lot in touring artists, musicians, people just kind of in that nomadic life. And it is when the nervous system is unable to stop being in motion, to constantly be in that place of transition without ever grounding in. And it does a number on all the relationships in our lives, all of, those normal basic needs that we have to just kind of feel aligned and centered. So I'm going to talk about it here, and hopefully if anything resonates, you can identify whether it's something you're struggling with, and then I'm going to suggest some things that you can do about it. So it often shows up, the ways that you would recognize it in yourself or in people that you love, is that your body never really lands anywhere. That constant state of transition. It can feel a lot like survival mode, which is why it's not sustainable. I'll say it again, it is not sustainable. Rest feels almost disorienting, like this angst or unnerving feeling when you're trying to relax. It's just not possible. You feel close to people, and this is important. You feel close to people, but not quite in sync. So this emotional and relational drift is a lot like a kind of collateral damage in our relationships, because that day-to-day stuff, oh, hey, I talked to Tom, remember how he was going to go blah, 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 and then being like, wait, what? Playing catch up. And it creates like this feeling of distance, this feeling of isolation or not quite being in sync. Home, like you understand it, or in the movies and the shows or your friends describe, doesn't regulate you. Like walking in the home doesn't give you that kind of feeling that we're used to. And that's very disconcerting. Re-entry after travel brings like this irritability, this need to escape, this wanting to numb, this, you can't quite explain it, but homesickness for a place that you actually don't want to be. That's that contradiction, right? That hard part of you spend a lot of your phone calls maybe complaining about being on tour and how much you miss home, and then you get home and you just don't feel right. And it isn't that you want to be on tour, but you just have this urge to be somewhere else. And part of this relational drift, there's also this thing called re-entry whiplash. It's not called that. Again, I'm naming these things, but it's that emotional crash that comes and happens like when the calendar says home. Right, but the body hasn't caught up to it yet. So common signs of that: snapping or withdrawing after being home for a little bit, or immediately when you return. Feeling lonely even when you're with your partner, your kids, your family. Grief or irritability that you just can't explain. It's kind of this unnamed grief of the tour, grief of these friendships and these bonds and these 16-hour days you've spent with these people. And then now you're kind of back home at the grocery store, or, playing with Legos with your child, walking the dog. And all of those things can mutually be important, right? But also very disorienting. So it isn't that you don't love your kids or your wife or your partner or your life or your home. I think it's important, too, to know that this is not ingratitude. Quite the opposite. You can love that you have this awesome job, or that you get paid to do this thing and see the world, or if you're a consultant, the power and skill sets that you get to possess. But there is a grief there too, a grief of who you are when you're doing those things, how you get recognized as those things, and then it might not be quite the same at home, whatever that looks like. And having a little period of adjustment or some grace to transition is key. I think it's important to say, and I'll end with this, you don't need more discipline. You're not failing at this thing. And I hear a lot in sessions, a lot of my clients who are on tour or whatever, who are like, I can't live this life anymore. This life is going to kill me. It isn't the life per se. It is the byproduct of not managing our nervous system, not grounding, and not understanding how to self-regulate. That is the problem. So you can have these entire careers. You don't have to quit this way of life. You just have to be aware and intentional. So create ceremony around it. Create rituals around those thresholds of transition. Talk about it with the people you love, the people most affected. And also talk with others who are going through it so you don't feel so alone in it. Give it a name, whatever it is. It's so important because relational drifting, it doesn't get healed by pushing more. In fact, quite the opposite. So hopefully that helps. And if you have time, I would say journal about it. Kind of ask yourself the questions of, what does mine look like? What does my emotional and relational drift look like? Going back out on tour or coming back home? Just understanding and putting words and language around that is so big, along with intentionality. And hopefully that's helpful. It's been coming up a lot, and I think it really deserves some time and some attention and, language around it. So that's it.